in Scotland as well, I can see very easily a lot of so-called Scottish nationalists to date simply not going along with your Stephen Flynn's of this world, because Stephen Flynn is just part of that kind of political elite class who absolutely, again, worship multiculturalism. But most people who vote for the SNP don't. And lots of people, perhaps the majority of people who have voted for the SNP, they don't want Scotland to be invaded either. They don't think it's right that people should come here illegally, that should come here criminally, that they should take houses that their children or that they themselves need. And so I do believe that the SNP and all the political class are on a loser on this one. And they are going to be forced, and it will be extremely difficult for them to accept it, but they are going to be forced into understanding that their worldview isn't relevant anymore. So in a sense, this is a kind of last gasp. And over the next 5 years of the Starmer administration, it is going to be very interesting to see what happens. But we want to move the debate to the point where people like Stephen Flynn cannot speak up with his nonsense about how somehow the small boat arrivals need our moral and legal protection. No, they don't. They're criminals. They need to go home. That has to be the message. And I can see that message being well taken up by the majority of people in Scotland and throughout the United Kingdom. And just Stephen Flynn's and and Keir Starmer's of this world will have to change their tune or find another job. That's my hope anyway for the future.
Well, one of the things that I find so remarkable, one time I was unbearably naive, and back in 2016, and I was 20 at the time? Yeah, 20. And I voted to leave the EU, right? And one of the reasons to vote to leave the EU was because I bought into the whole idea that, look, if we can just scream hard enough about leaving the EU, about ending freedom of movement, then the government will finally get the message that we don't want mass immigration, right? And they didn't get that. But the thing was that, speaking to the Stephen Flynn's and the Keir Starmers of the world, obviously I don't know about the political history of Stephen Flynn, but I would guess that he's an enormous EU lovey and a huge Europhile and everything, hates Brexit. Yeah. But the thing is with the SNP and people like that, from, as you say, a very old and dying regime, they don't understand that, well, if they'd have just nipped the immigration issue in the bud there and then, sort of, around 2012, then we'd probably have never left the EU. We'd still be in the EU right now, right? So rather than preserve that political union, which apparently happened to them so much, and just realize the realpolitik of needing to have a bit of give and take, they wanted it all. And in their quest to have it all, they lost membership to the European Union. And now in their attempt to hold on to that one thing with their dying clutches, which is mass immigration, which they will not surrender. They're like that random Japanese guy in Malaysia who was fighting World War II 30 years after it had ended, right, in the jungle. It's like, no, you don't understand. It's over, right? The native consensus now is so far against you. I was looking at the YouGov polls today. Immigration has now become the biggest issue